I grew up in the next county up and met my wife at Catawba.
Mm-hmm.
She graduated at Wyckoff along about 42. And we were married, and I worked in Nash County. That's near Rocky Mount. You know where that is, Scarlet?
Roughly.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So when we started our family, we just came back to Concord. She was a mother at home for a couple of years, and during a time when teachers were so in demand, the principal came over and kind of drafted her back to work. So I worked as a 6th grade teacher in Concord, and was able to get my master's and received an elementary principal's appointment at Beverly Hills.
Yes, sir.
In 1954. I came in 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 65, I joined the Cabarrus County Schools Assistant Superintendent. And was Associate Superintendent, became Superintendent of Cabarrus County Schools in 1975.
Okay.
And worked until 1989. I retired. I've been retired 20 years, if you can believe it.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty impressive.
But during the time of as an administrator, we were fortunate enough to have a in-service training with emphasis on trying to improve from within.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, we want to improve our schools. Well, you can't necessarily exchange those teachers for another group of teachers. So what you try to do, my philosophy was try to improve what you have.
Yes, sir.
So we put great emphasis on in-service education.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that I was able to continue till I got my EDD at Duke University in summers and after hours.
Mm-hmm.
The schools were kind of slow about picking up on desegregation or integration of the schools, and at first there was not much movement toward integrating the schools or desegregating them. There was some de facto desegregation, and most of the communities circumvented it by drawing district lines and having children to go to school in the districts that they lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those were impacted by a race. But the Brown case in 1954, when they adjudicated that and decided that the schools had to be desegregated or integrated, nothing much happened for 10 years or so around here.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had a Dr. Dubisset, a black family that was instrumental in bringing suit against Cabarrus County Schools along about 64, about 10 years after the Brown case.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're familiar with the Brown case.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the most of it was just ignoring it or circumventing or whatnot. This is a quote from a 1959 North Carolina Council on Human Relations issued the following statement, and this is a quote. Some say that we have segregated schools today because both whites and Negroes prefer segregation. That what we have now is voluntary segregation, but this cannot be true, for anything that is voluntary must be, by definition, be a matter of free choice. We know that parents and children are not free to choose the schools they will attend. They are assigned to schools, segregated schools. Negro parents and pupils must either accept these assignments or they must run a gauntlet of administrative procedure, which is long and painful and costly. Naturally, only a few brave souls are willing and able to take this course. So it is simply not true fact to say that what exists today is voluntary segregation. That went back to 1959. That was the attitude. A lot of people said, well, they're happy with the schools like they are.
Right.
But that particular, the North Carolina Council on Human Relations statement and resolution on public school desegregation was, I noted that as part of my beginning. And as we move forward, it says, in general, it is believed that the leadership role of school superintendents and board of education in the area of school desegregation and integration is difficult. Some community leaders have made effective use of human relations councils and other citizens groups when developing plans for desegregating the schools. A new sensitivity to the community will be required if you're going to integrate schools. So it was kind of a do-nothing attitude after the Brown case. And in our case, Cabarrus County was biding time until Dr. Dubeset presented his grief to the board.
Okay.
And I'm going to find said in Cabarrus, educational leaders, lay and professional, recognized that the Brown decision of 1954 would be the new national policy basis for assigning students. However, the local school system failed to develop a plan for desegregation and integrating the schools at that time. The Cabarrus school officials, like most school administrations, took a wait-and-see posture. There was evidence that local school leaders recognized the seriousness of the Brown decision, yet it was 11 years before they adopted a plan for total desegregation of the schools. When a plan of desegregation was developed, doubts as to the wisdom of the Cabarrus Board of Education plan of desegregation lingered in the minds of many citizens. Threats to black teachers, administrators, and board members were made by the Ku Klux Klan.
Really?
The Klan actually had some drive-by shootings.
Really?
No one was hurt, but the homes were shot into.
Some of the school board members and administrators and so
The
forth?
teachers and the superintendent received threats and so forth.
Wow, I did not know that.
Although the members of the Cabarrus Board of Education believed in the moral and legal correctness of the desegregation, they were subjected to pressure from special interest groups. The Supreme Court had rendered a school desegregation decision in '54. However, 11 years later, the local board faced a dilemma when it established the local desegregation policy. Therefore, the local school board could not easily implement a local desegregation policy without input from many local pressure groups, for and against.
Right. I was going to ask you, the school board, what was as far as you remember, the general attitude about the school board?
Attitude
Were
of
they
the
favor against?
of the school board was somewhat positive. They had a good relationship with black people, but they didn't particularly want to stir up the community by,
Forcing
reassigning the students. And that's what evolves from the Dubeset case. The policy for desegregating the Cabarrus County schools provided an interesting case study of local policy development with federal, state, and local involvement for the following reasons. The Cabarrus plan was one of the first attempts at total desegregation in North Carolina. A geographic zoning plan was used instead of a freedom of choice plan. At that time, freedom of choice was the popular way because it didn't mean you didn't necessarily go all the way. You just let certain students have a freedom of choice.
Right.
And the local school system did not follow the state policy of freedom of choice. That was the state's policy at that time. Freedom of choice.